Hey kids, it's Old Man Shouting at Clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders Show.
Hey GT, what are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey kids, welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your totally impartial, 100% unbiased co-host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me this week, as always, is MJ.
Hi, I'm ready to talk junk football.
Oh, good, because there was a lot of it. And, of course, GT.
Hey, how you doing? I have one question about last week. Was it something I said?
It was everything you said, apparently. You sounded like a chipmunk. I don't know what happened there. I'm glad we've got you back. We'll do our best to get you a full show in this time.
All righty.
No, I used all my very limited editing talents to try and fix it and couldn't. There we were.
Well, as I said, I think that was probably the best I ever sounded. So there you go.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. No, we want to hear what you got to say. Anyway, I'll jump in just real quick. I usually give the updates on my fantasy stuff. Another bad week. I didn't get anybody really above about 10 points. I'll get better. I lost again. I'm now 2-1. I lost to Adam at the CFL, Canadian Football Countdown. That's their show. So that's my shame again this week. Hopefully we'll do better next week. But going to jump off that right away quick. And we're going to start because apparently we're starting off with It's All About Me with GT.
Ooh, me.
Hey, how are you? It's about, as you may see, I'm wearing black and gold this week for a couple of reasons. Number one is because I said I would wear red until we lost. We lost, so I'm not wearing red. The reason I'm wearing the black and gold, though, is I'm going to just stand up, turn this. This is number one. Turn around.
Yeah.
It's a key.
Uh-huh.
It's a Casey Printers number one jersey I've had for quite a while. And it kind of started something from MJ that went and just posted, whatever happened to Casey Printers? And I said, well, I have a Casey Printers jersey. And then I said, well, why don't we do this? I will auction it or sell it. At first, I thought I would sell it. And then I thought, no, let's auction it off and see if anybody would be willing to buy this Casey Printers jersey. And all money, all funds will go to CFL Fans Fight Cancer. So I thought that was a nice way to try to raise some money for CFL Fans Fight Cancer from something that's been hanging in my basement since Casey Printers was a tie cat.
Yeah.
So, so that's what I thought we would do. And MJ was the first one that jumped aboard. I started the bidding at $50. MJ has raised that price to $55. So for everybody that's listening, it's now bid at $55. The bids are going to stay open until the end of the game between the Stampeders and the Ticats on Thanksgiving weekend. And at that point in time, the closing will come about, and we will then find out how we figure out the rest of it, and I will ship it to you in some way, shape, or form. And that's the thing. And I will continue to update both on social media once a month or so, and here as well, and let everybody know where the bid currently stands and what the next steps are, and hopefully we can raise some money. Now, why do I have a Casey Printers jersey? So, because I'm a sicko. And because I like messing with people, and I've been a long time season ticket holder here for the Argos because that's where I live, so that's where I primarily watch football. So I would go to Argo games in every other team's jersey. I have a jersey from every other team, and I would just show up and mess with people around me because they say, "Oh, you're a Ticat fan." The next week I'd be there in every team. I have every team's jersey. Other than the Red Blacks, because they didn't exist, so I don't have a Red Black, and I don't have an Edmonton jersey simply because I would never own a Edmonton jersey, no matter what.
Of course. And
I do have a Rough Rider jersey, which in today's world I would never own again. So I still have that left from the days before, when they were just kind of cute. when they were just kind of cute and off to the side and we didn't worry about that. But yes, that's why I have every other team's jersey just to mess with the other fans around me where they would just go, what are you doing? And then the only time I would wear the Argos, which I did on Friday night, was when Edmonton was in town, or now when either Edmonton or Saskatchewan in town, I wear my Argos jersey because on those nights, I'm an Argo fan. So
I love it.
That's
amazing.
story. That's the story. So I am willing to give up the Casey printers, and we'll see how it goes. And maybe I'll do the rest of them as well. And I have another little bit of paraphernalia that, if this works, I might also put up for on auction and see if you know what, if it's just sitting in my basement, it's a great cause, and if we can raise money for it, even better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's I give you big applause for doing that and for putting the money towards it. Well, like you say, we'll update it here every so often as we go through, and we'll pump it up on the other stuff where we're at, see what we can do. We've all got a couple of rants to talk about this weekend. It seemed like it was the not just ugly weekend of football, but the angry one as well. And I was going to mention, first of all, I'm sure most people know by now, Coach Dinwiddies' explosion after the game. It was incredible to watch. I don't know that I've ever seen a coach that angry, and I've seen a lot of them. I've seen the classic ones about the playoffs and all of this stuff, but he was just so upset, and it makes me almost wonder if there's more going on behind the scenes there with Chad still being out, and is it maybe that injury just isn't coming back? Is there other pressures? Because I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I'd love to hear a coach talking like that, nice and honest and everything. But calling out your players in a press conference, even if you don't say specifically which guard it is, you're still doing close enough that that's there. And then the part that I can tell you from being having been in a leadership position, being a people leader, when you make a threat that somebody is going and then you do nothing to follow up on it, you lose all kinds of credibility with your team. So if he was going to say that, I would have thought somebody would have gone. That's about all I've got to say. What do you guys think?
Well, I didn't see it because I was at the game, so I didn't see it, and I wasn't going to watch that whole game again just to be able to see the rant at the end, because I've seen enough at that game. But obviously, I've heard pretty much all of it from the thing. One of the things that I do say is that he said somebody's going to lose their job. He didn't say somebody's going to be off of the team. So it could well be that he's going to make some changes to that offensive line. And maybe one of the guys that we think is like a Ryan Hunter, who maybe he's a tackle, not a guard. He was specific about a guard. But somebody like that who's a high-profile guy might get knocked down to not being starting. And maybe it's just for a week or two. But that fulfills the threat without losing the player. So I don't think we have to jump to the conclusion 3 days later that he hasn't cut somebody, so therefore he hasn't lived up to the threat. It might be simply that he doesn't make changes along that line. And they have to, because that line's been horrible. It was horrible that night. It's been the worst part of their team all in 3 games so far.
I have a real problem with calling out a specific player in a press conference. This is Ed Hervey level nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And my take is that Ryan should not be there if that's how he's going to act and talk about his players. You've clearly lost the room. This is parenting 101. You can't give empty threats, and you can't call specific players out in press conferences. You think about Mike O'Shea would never. Dave Dickinson probably would never. You can't, I don't care how mad you are, you cannot throw specific players under the bus. It is just not the vibe.
Actual quote was, someone's going home tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's not, I'm making changes. That's someone's going home tomorrow. And there's been no action on that. And the other thing is, I don't know, it could be Hunter because he's had a bad first few games and they did move him inside to guard on that game. Might have been him. I don't know. It's either him or who's the other one? Vandell, I think. So one of them, he's not happy with how they came into the season and with.
Well, why are they on the team then?
Yeah.
Were you not at training camp, Ryan? Did you not see he came in at that weight? Yeah. You knew. I don't think it's a surprise. So I just don't understand why you need to voice that out to the entire world.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen him on the bench at games when things aren't going well. like literally trailing along behind people, yelling at them, like we used to see Chris Jones do. So he's a great coach. He's got a fantastic winning record. He gets the most out of his team, but I wasn't impressed with that one. Anything else, or should we move on?
Yeah, well, I think it ties into when we talk about the game. I think a lot of it has to do with the game itself, and it has to do with, the fact that they're 0-3.
Now, MJ was going to tell us about our other rant that's got everybody talking.
I try to read. Okay, Luke Wilson on the X Place posted apparently a huge rant. I've only seen screenshots of it, so I haven't seen him replying to anyone. I tried to read it. My eyes glazed over. He was rambling, but basically his takeaway from the CFL is that it's hot garbage and we need to change a bunch of rules. And my favorite CFL social media person, Bo Levi Mitchell, today told Luke Wilson, welcome to the CFL. There's going to be quarterback sneaks and penalties.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait till Bo's on the panel. But it was just, I think a lot of the upset here, and I was thinking about it. Luke almost feels like an outsider coming in and telling people what's up. And it's different when you talk smack about your family, and then when somebody outside your family talks smack about your family. It's two different things. Are there things that can be cleaned up? Great. Is it necessarily rules? I don't think so. He was talking about how no one's watching games, and I think that the rules are not the reason people aren't watching games.
Yeah, first of all, I'll say this, is that it wasn't that different than what he said in an interview with 3 Down about 3 or 4 months ago. It's basically the same thing. It was just after a game, so he had specific examples from a game. This isn't new. This is what he thinks the CFL needs to do. Now, I don't agree with most of what he said. I do believe it sounds very much like an NFL guy telling us that the NFL is better and you need to be 4 downs and you need to do this and you need to do that to change the rules. Yeah, but we don't want to be the NFL, so that's not going to happen. And the way that he didn't like the last minute and a half, that's what we all love about this game. And from the stands, it's terrific. From an analyst point of view, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not from some guy that played the game. But you didn't play this game. You played a different game. If you played this game like Bo does, or like some of the current players do, they might tell you this is the best part of the game because it's freewheeling and because it happens in a minute and a half.
I agree with you on that. What I heard him saying was basically you should become NFL rules. Everything that he complained about was basically the stuff that they don't do in the NFL. And like you said, GT, it makes the CFL exciting. Most of these new fans he's talking about us bringing in are not football analysts that are going to see every bad mistake. They're looking for an exciting game, and that was extremely exciting. So I'm with you. I write it off. I don't do a lot of social media, but what I have done seems like everybody is just writing it off. It'll be interesting to see how TSN reacts, because one of the things that really annoyed me about it was the fact he sat there on the game at TSN and did his little sideline gig. Look, I'm now part of TSN and everybody should be paying attention to me. And he said none of that stuff. He was all about how great it was and look at how good this play is or that play is. And then he gets off right away and says hot garbage.
It seemed like he was mostly talking hot garbage about the last 2 minutes of the game. That last drive, he seemed to really not appreciate it. And he was talking about timeouts. Why wasn't there more timeouts? And you only have 2 timeouts. If either know the rules and then talk about it, but you can't just complain about it if you don't know the rules. So you can't say, oh, they should have called a timeout if there are no timeouts to call. You do quarterback sneaks because you only have 3 down. You do you have the yard off the ball, so you have more opportunity for quarterbacks. There are things that you need to do and just do differently the way the game's played. If you want it to be the NFL light, well, that's not what any of us want. Sorry.
I don't know. There's a lot more to say about it. This is not me. This is stolen from, I don't know, it was either 3 Down or the 2 and Out guys or something I was listening to yesterday. But they pointed out on the whole quarterback sneak thing that Saskatchewan at least had 6 quarterback sneaks for 30 yards. And they said any football play you can average 5 yards a play on, it's not a bad football play. I think he's just trying to draw attention and make himself be a household name in Canada, because a lot of people that are CFL fans don't know who Luke Wilson was. Let's get off of that and go on to GT. I hear reinforcements are coming in Calgary.
Yeah, they signed Adam Bighill to the practice roster. I think most people have either been waiting for him to sign somewhere or expecting him to kind of ride off into the sunset after the injury last year and Winnipeg not re-signing him. I kind of thought he would take a shot somewhere, and I kind of thought it made sense to be in Calgary over the course of the offseason. And now it makes great sense considering they had Markel Lee, their number one middle linebacker, go down and might be out for the entire season. And then they lost another linebacker on Saturday. And certainly they were already thin there. So to get a guy of his caliber, even if it's as an insurance policy, and even if it's only for Markel Lee is back in after Labor Day or something, well, then you know what? You still keep Biggie around if he wants to be around for the rest of the year, and it doesn't cost you too much money. He's a great leader. I don't think it's a bad move, and it's good timing. You do those kind of signings when you have a bye week. Next week, maybe he practices a bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in one of these next couple of games because they look pretty bad at linebacker on the weekend.
Yeah, they are, especially in the middle there. They started with Tights, and he was a good football player at one point, but he's aged quickly. And what I saw was he was either crashing too quick to the line and getting just tied up in all the blocking, or he was hanging back too far and not getting to the hole before the running back was through it. They're in tough. And then I noticed I can't remember the name, but their rookie that they drafted this year, they had him in for a big chunk of the second half.
Yeah,
and he looked like he's got a fair nature. Yes, he looked like he's got some potential, but again, he's a rookie. So Bighill, if nothing else, will be a great coaching addition to them. Yes. And then it's just how much does he add on the field? I did hear someone suggesting that he might not be fully recovered from the injury yet, so they may still need a couple of more weeks before they can get him into playing at all. But we'll find that out as it goes along.
Yeah. I just want to offer my condolences to the Winnipeg Blue Bomber fans, because this hurts.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
My equivalent is when Peter Diakowski signed with the Riders. And you just like, in one heart, you're like, I'm happy you're still playing football and I'm glad someone wants to give you a shot and you're going to go help another team. But it's like a dagger. It's a dagger. And so Bomber fans, I really feel for you. I hope Big Hill has a great season with the Stamps.
Yes, and it's been a bad year for them already because Andrew Harris is coaching with the Riders, which has got to hurt even more.
Tough days. They seem to be winning. I think they're just fine.
Yeah, they're doing good.
Winning makes everything feel better.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have a lot more to talk about, but it's time for MJ's Family Football Talk.
We are family.
I just want to give a shout out to all the CFL players who go out of their way after games to sign autographs and talk to fans, especially kids. We were at Commonwealth for the home opener, and my son, as you know, is a huge Alouettes fan. And after the game, he got to talk to quite a few Alouettes. He and Maltos took a picture flexing together. And he was just over the moon about that. It was just, and he wanted to make sure that I sent it to the two of you. He's like, please send it to Old Man and GT. I need them to see this.
Yeah, we've got it, and we've got a slightly modified version that I'm going to throw in here so folks can see how good it looks. Yeah.
And he talked to Alexander, and Alexander took a picture with him. And I was like, thank you so much. You guys only come here once a year. He's like, yeah, I know, because he ran over after his interview with TSN. He ran over because we saw him waving, and this is how you grow a game. You want to talk how to grow a game? Just sign autographs for the kids for 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. And these are core memories. These are core memories for kids. Like he was just over the moon. Special thank you to the Montreal Alouettes. Special thank you to Maltos and Alexander and Austin Mack and the other players who signed, but especially those three who took the time to talk to him. You guys are just superstars.
Yeah. Big applause for them.
Well done.
Gotta love the players that do that. Yeah, they, whether it's them or you hear the stories about VA. You were talking about how the one preseason game that he wasn't dressed, he was sitting there tossing footballs back and forth with kids in the stands.
Honestly, it doesn't take much. Doesn't take much.
I think that's one of the best things about the CFL is that maybe because they're not making multi-million dollars, the players there really seem to appreciate the fact that they're playing for fans and take the time for the fans. You know, we see stuff like this at games, but there's also on every team, there are players that stick around in the off season and go to different events, and they get paid for speaking engagements, but they're out there doing that. And a lot of it is with kids and with the schools. So good on to the CFL players for what they give back. Speaking of CFL players and speaking of all those ones you just did, I guess it's time to move on to our first game here. Montreal 38 at Edmonton 28. And I will maybe start with this one just by saying it wasn't a great game for the Elks. They looked really good in garbage time in the fourth quarter, and they scored 22 of their 28 points there, but I don't take a lot of good away from that. On the other hand, they were also playing Montreal, who's just been, I said last week, a tier above everybody else. And I can't wait to see a game between Montreal and Winnipeg or Saskatchewan. Basically, that's about the only two I see right now that feel like they could maybe give them a game. Toronto, if Kelly comes back and changes it, maybe. Any thoughts on the game?
A few things. I thought, it was... the first thing I'll say is for an opening day, for home opener, the crowd was terrible. It really was. And it looked probably worse on television than it was live, or maybe it didn't. But it looked pretty bad. Secondly, overall, my feeling as I was watching the game, especially in the second half, when he started to make things happen, was Trey Ford is not working with Maksimic at all. It seems like the only time he was doing things and was when he was off script, when he was just moving outside in the pocket and then looking for his second or third reads down the field. When he's forced to do, this is what I'm told to do, this is what I'm going to do, it doesn't work. They need him more mobile, and he may just not be one of these guys that's going to live up to his potential in the short term. He might be Vernon Adams 2.0. Vernon Adams took 8 years before he finally fit into a system and then put all of that stuff together, and is now the guy that people love as a quarterback. It may not be Edmonton's, and Trey may not be the guy there over the long term unless something happens. But I just think they need to be able to figure out how to utilize him rather than trying to have him fit into a little box that they have designed for him, because it's not working.
I heard someone talking on a podcast today about McKessick and when he was in BC, and he worked with Mike Riley and Nathan Rourke, and they are not Trey Ford. You're never going to make Trey a pocket passer. He's got to be mobile. He's got to be mobile all the time. They're like giving him grief for not doing his second, third reads, but he'll do those reads when he's running 30 back. Then sometimes he'll make a great throw downfield. So he can do his reads. He's just not doing them the way that offensive coach seems to want him to do them. And it's just, It's pretty disappointing.
And he had progressed more under Jarius Jackson, frankly.
Yes.
For sure.
He was getting through his reads. He was. I don't think that it's impossible for him to be a pocket passer. I think he'll end up being a VA, or what I said a few weeks ago, given the right people to work with, he'll end up like a Flutie, where he can stand in there and pass out of the pocket and be great. But if the line suddenly breaks down, then he can do all this other magic and go off script and still make things happen. So I don't know. It could be just learning pains between the two of them, but I don't think it's a lack of talent on Trey's part.
I don't think it's a lack of talent on either of them, the coach or the quarterback. I think it's just a mess between the two so far, and I think it just may take longer than we expected. And we think, he's his fourth year, but he's still got very little consistent playing time to learn. And again, he might learn to play from the pocket, but it's never going to be his best position. He's always, as MJ said, going to be better rolling out and throwing on the roll. Just a reminder that Jarius Jackson did interview for the head coaching job of the Elks, and they said no.
Well, we'll see how that all turns out for them. I won't go into a lot of the stuff that I feel like saying there, but I will say a couple of things from Montreal's point of view that I was impressed the hell out of me. That is a very good team. But that interception that Ento made, coming across, what kind of range and speed he showed on that. When they showed the replay, how far he closed and what he did on that was amazing. And then the other thing that I thought was really, really pretty football was the touchdown run by Sean Thomas Erlington. He did a fantastic job. That was patience, waiting for the holes to develop. And even once he got through the holes and heading down the field, he was still letting the block set up in front of him. He's a good running back when he gets the chance.
Yeah, I thought, speaking of Trey Ford, I thought Davis Alexander did his best Trey Ford at one point, where he did the exact same thing, where he just ruled out, was 20 yards deep, and then ran around and then just launched a bomb and perfect end zone touchdown. I mean, and the difference between those two quarterbacks was, Davis Alexander looks like he's on. If that injury is not long term, if he's back on track, he's going to be so good, it's crazy. All those people that were doubters, I think, were wrong.
MBT was also pretty inspired because he did like a big jump.
Yeah,
that was
hurdle. Yes. One of the other podcasts was saying you're too old for that.
Yeah, you are, sir. No, leave that to the young ones.
Yeah. There's a couple of other things before we move on from the game that I noticed in the game. Number one was, I'm not sure if it was camera angle. I'm not sure if it was the play calling. I'm not sure if it was the plays themselves. But early in the first quarter, throughout the first quarter, it seemed to me that we could see the vision of Montreal's offense happening in real time as backs were crossing behind the line of scrimmage, as guys and receivers were moving back and forth and going into position. You could just watch it all, and then the play unfolded, and it was there. It was like, wow, I don't know if that's new or it's just my eyes were better. I had my football eyes in or what, but it just looked terrific. And the other thing I just want to touch on is Philpott, both of them, but that night as well, Tyson Philpott is an incredible football player. He catches, but where I blew me away is he blocks his butt off. He works so hard blocking for the other receivers. He lays guys out. He ties other defenders up. He's an all-round guy. He's not just standing there waiting for the ball to come his way. He's doing everything he needs to do. He's a heck of a football player. And Jalen's, I noticed, is doing the same thing, and maybe it's just more time, but Tyson looked incredible the other night.
Yes. He's the one that cost me the fantasy win, by the way, because Adam took him. And in fantasy, you have to pick one person as your captain, which is almost always the quarterback because he gets the most points. And your captain gets double points. So Tyson was there with 24 points and Adam made him his captain. So there was 48 points right there. And one player, he had half of what I scored. So I'm a fan of Tyson, but just not right now.
That's fair. I just want to talk about a couple things. I just want to say the Elks kicking game has improved. 100% accuracy on that game. So good job, Vincent. Hopefully that continues. I'm just wondering, so the Elks DB situation, I know they got rid of one. Aaron Grimes is first year coaching DBs. I'm wondering how that's going. And I also was thinking today, how much are they missing Lucius Purifoy?
Didn't they bring him back in some capacity though? Or am I getting him?
He's suspended for 2 games for taking ADHD meds that weren't prescribed to him.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that.
He has now been diagnosed with ADHD and has a doctor's. But anyway, I was at that game, season opener. I'm gonna give the Elks a little bit of a pass on this. Why would the CFL make a team have a home opener on a Thursday night at 7 p.m. during the school year? There was hardly any kids there. Hardly any. My kid was only there because of the Alouettes. If the Alouettes were not playing, we wouldn't have gone to that game.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? If you had tickets to a Blue Jays game on Thursday night at 7 o'clock or 7:30 with your son, would you go?
It would depend. It would depend on what.
I'm so tired of people using excuses like it's a Thursday night. You go to every other sport on Thursdays. Why does football, and particularly the CFL, get all this? Oh, I don't buy into that. I don't buy into the traffic. I don't buy into any of those excuses.
My child did not go to bed till midnight that night because we stayed till the end, and it is a disaster waking a kid up. It depends. If it was like playoffs, that's a different nuance, and I would probably say yes. A regular season, especially early in the season, no. There wasn't a lot of kids there. They took down all the Elks signage. All of it's gone. They put a former name on a fire truck and paraded it around the field with the polar bear mascot. I really don't want to talk about this, but I'm just going to say my experience. It canceled my family tailgate party for next month. We're not going. We're done. Like, I can't give Larry money. So I will watch on TV. I will not be attending in person. Good luck, Larry Thompson.
Yeah.
I think all of those are valid reasons not to go. I just don't think a Thursday night's a valid reason. But
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying, and we'll cover them because it's part of the CFL. But I think that had a lot to do with the fact that they had 14,000 and change sold tickets. I don't think there was that many in the stands.
There was not that many people in the stands.
I've had people on Blue Sky reach out to me. I had one fellow reach out to me and say specifically when they held that press conference back 3-4 weeks ago, his first thing he did was he called his season ticket rep who'd been trying to get him to re-sign and said, "Don't bother. I'm not interested in any of this." I've seen others talking about how the fact they're not going to go to the games. If you want to talk hot garbage, that is hot garbage. There's no reason for that, and I wonder how much that affects the players.
How do you go into that every day?
Anyway, well, I think we're all on the same place that we're not impressed with Edmonton, and that management group ain't going to get any support here. A couple of things that I will mention, because you were saying about Davis's injury, Davis Alexander's injury there. He missed both days. They've had 2 days of practice so far, and he's been DNP. I checked that before we came on here, so that looks a little iffy. Austin Mack was limited the first day and did not participate the second day with a foot injury at all. And the other one that I'll mention, just because Hamilton didn't play this week, is Greg Bell with Hamilton was limited in practice. So I don't know what'll happen there.
Is Montreal going to be like the Winnipeg Blue Bomber machine where you just drop new people in and it just keeps going?
Yeah, like Calgary was for years. And I think maybe we'll see on that front. The one thing that I've been waiting to see is they got Josh Archibald back off injury. He's the D-end that they picked up from BC, who was just a rotational D-end out there, a Canadian. But I was really impressed with him last year, and I can't wait to see what he does on that line with the kind of performers they have there. So hopefully he'll be in this week.
They could start 3 Canadian defensive linemen. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, think about the Canadians on that defense. Back at safety, you got Dequoy. Then you've got at linebacker, you've got Tantan Arku, and all names that I struggle to pronounce.
Boy Berglund, you've got Uglak, and now you've got Arkham. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that's without even really working at it. That's your ratio right there. It's pretty wild. They're loaded. There's no doubt about it. So, but it'll be interesting because they were much more conservative with MBT there, and they weren't going nearly as deep in the second half as they were in the first half.
They didn't need to.
Yeah, I think that was as much to do with the fact that they had such a lead in there. Because they didn't have to give up. I don't believe they had to give up the points to Edmonton. They did in that fourth quarter, but it's just they were playing fourth quarter football, smart football.
Yeah.
So that takes us on then to the other game, the one that's caused all the controversy this week, which was Saskatchewan 39 at Toronto 32. And I'm not going to say a lot about this off the start, other than this is the fact that I think that Luke Wilson missed, and a lot of other people that are complaining about that game with all the penalties and with stuff not being done well, is you had a game going on between one team that has not had their starting quarterback yet this season and frankly looks lost in what they're trying to do out there a whole bunch. And the other team was at the end of a 2-week grueling travel schedule. They flew to Hamilton, Toronto, and back twice in 2 weeks and then had to practice on top of that. I'm pretty sure they were just exhausted. And that's when you start getting penalties from just poor technique or you're tired and grumpy and whatnot. I think that a lot of the stuff that people are complaining about within that game had to do with those facts, that neither of those teams were in a position that they could play their best football.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with 8 starters from the week before in Toronto not being available. 8.
That too, yeah.
Starters. That's a lot. on a team that wasn't exactly playing terrific before that, and a team that had, what a lot of people suspected was a decimated defense from free agency in the offseason, and in a team without their number one quarterback. I will say that this was the chippiest football game I've seen in many, many years. And it was chippy from the get-go. And then that penalty, that the late hit and the injury midway through the first quarter, that wasn't great, but it was chippy from the opening, and it just got progressively worse. And I will say, from where I was sitting, it seemed to be instigated by Saskatchewan. And I'm not doing that as an anti-rider guy, because I'm not. I'm just saying that's from my point of view up in the stands. It seemed to be Saskatchewan that was driving that. Like, they knew that they had a Toronto team with a lot of guys that were not veterans and therefore are more likely to get upset earlier. So let's tick them off, type of thing. The one guy that I noticed mostly, and I don't know if it came across on TV, so you can correct me, but Jermaine Hardrick, he was in the midst of every single one of those, and he seemed to be the leading figure that was making the Argos nuts and driving guys after the play and doing lots of chippy stuff, and that seemed to be going nonstop from the beginning to the end. Toronto took a lot of penalties. Saskatchewan took more. But Toronto took them at worse times because there was a lot of offsetting penalties. And then the play at the end, it was so exciting. The place went wild when Brissett caught that 2-point conversion. And Brissett and Mattel both had terrific games as Canadian. Both had terrific games. And then, the way it ended was that's classic CFL football. I mean, it's bad that they only had 11 players and they buggered it up. But that's sort of classic CFL football too.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and that whole game to me was all the way through it. I wasn't sure who was going to win or lose, but I didn't get nervous because that was a classic Saskatchewan game. When they went up by 10 points in the first half or something, I said, doesn't matter. This is going to end up being exciting. These games, either the Riders lose by a couple of points or something goes wild. And that is a Riders game. You certainly don't end up using all of your seat for the last 3 minutes of any of their games. It seems like you're perched on the edge. I thought it was a sloppy game. It wasn't a well-executed game, but it was an exciting game.
Yeah, exactly, because there was still lots of really good plays in that game. There was some great catches. There were some big hits. There was a lot still going on in that game. And live, it didn't look as sloppy again, maybe. What it looked like was slow and broken up because of the injuries and because of the penalties. But it wasn't like this is just like another boring. No, there was always something going on, because just when you thought one team was pulling forward, Saskatchewan looked like they were going up. Toronto would just do something and come back, and then they would bugger it up on the 1 yard line and only get one, and they'd be like, and then it would, it was like, yeah, it was good. It was typical. It was a good CFL Friday night.
So this is the game that had the live TikTok feed.
Okay, yeah. How did that go? Did you take any, Evelyn?
I did. I had the game on my laptop, and then I had TikTok live on my phone. So it was kind of funny because they were either 10 seconds ahead or 10 seconds behind. So then one person's like, "Oh, you guys are too far. You guys are 10 seconds behind." This other person's commented guys, I don't have cable. This is how I'm watching the game. And then one person commented, "My grandpa's the timekeeper at the game today." And they're like, "Oh, let's go see if we can find him." They're like, "Oh, he's upstairs, so we can't." At the Argos game, the sideline, both benches are on the same side. So they were just walking up and down the sideline following the play. And so if you go to my Blue Sky, I took some photos, screenshots of them being in the way of two referees, being up into the Argos bench and players glaring at them. But then they'd stand in the end zone. And at one point, there was over 600 people watching at one time on the live stream. And I stopped watching after third quarter because I was like, okay, I need a TikTok break. But then I wish I had been on TikTok live when all that drama happened in the last 2 minutes, because I'd be interested to see how that all played out. But there were some American people watching, and they were asking questions about the rules and what was going on, and some people who didn't have streaming or cable, so that's how they were watching the game. They have all their CFL gear on the sideline. And they get an interview at halftime, and at whatever team is winning at halftime, they get an interview with a player. But it was kind of funny trying to get them to find a player to even interview with them, because they did not, like, they looked so sketchy. Reeves interviewed with them, and Reeves talked about the game being chippy. And then at the end of the game, they talked to AJ, and they were asking AJ where his favorite restaurants and clubs were in Toronto. And then AJ was fairly nice. He was like, "There's some people wearing my jersey, my Toronto jersey over there. After when I'm done talking to you, I'm gonna go over and say hi to them."
CFL players, like I said.
600, I think that's a good number. It's just a number to the base and then keep growing from there. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and it's... Sorry, I was going to say, it's probably not 600 people you're taking away from some other audience.
Exactly.
You're not stealing those people from TSN or anything, so that's an add-on. I love it. It's great initiative.
Yeah, so they said that they're going to do probably one game a week. I think it'll be in the GTA area, so it'll probably be a Hamilton or Toronto. They're hoping to expand it. This is just kind of an experiment, but it seemed to get really positive responses, and it looked a little more cleaned up from the first time they did it. The one thing that you couldn't see the score. So people were constantly in the comments asking what the score was. And so sometimes they would pan to the scoreboard, or they would tell you. So I think they're looking to try and see if they can superimpose the score onto the TikTok feed so that people can see it. But yeah, I'll keep my eye on it. But that was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and it'll probably be Eastern teams because of just the travel costs, or I think there might be a couple of Western teams that have TSN radio in the area. I don't know if radio and TV work together on that, but maybe they can get some of the radio staffers doing it, because I'd love to see it through other games. I think it's a great idea.
Who are the quote unquote hosts? Are they a couple of Argo?
No, they're I think they're CFL. I think they're TSN employees.
TSN.
One had a man bun. They looked like they were in their mid-20s. They looked like interns. They were young.
That's what I thought. They'd be interns but I wasn't sure if they'd be league people or TSN people.
They knew their football stuff. I'll give them props. They were quite knowledgeable, and they were answering people's questions and talking and keeping an eye on the game and running up and down the sidelines, getting in refs ways, getting in TSN camera ways. They were having a great time.
Chaos. I'm here for the chaos. The best part of the CFL is the chaos. Yeah. But before we move on, there were a couple of things that I wanted to mention that I took note of. One is I absolutely love Ben Major as a ref.
Yes.
His way of communicating to the crowd, clear, concise, a little bit of humor when it's needed. He adds to the entertainment value. I've always enjoyed the games that Andre does the best, because I think he's the best ref in the league, but it's coming up there with Ben just because of his presentation.
Yeah.
And then the other two things that I wanted to mention was the AJ's touchdown run. I was just absolutely amazed at the blocking on that. I don't know how much it showed up in the actual game when things are full speed, but you look at it, they talk about a hole you could drive a truck through. He literally did, and then once he gets past the linebacker levels, he's still got a lineman downfield blocking for him. It was one of the most impressive overall blocking setup runs for a touchdown. I thought that was fantastic. And then the other thing that I made a note of, as I said, that Dejon Brissett has probably got a bruise the shape of Marcus Sayles on his back this week, because there were twice that he got passes out into the flats and Sayles just absolutely tattooed him. And one of them he didn't get a chance to catch, but the other one he held on to, a fantastic hit. But Sayles is not a big guy, but he was sure throwing his body around out there. Yeah. And then the last thing, again, when I looked at the injury list just before I came on here, Emlis still did not participate. Harris did not participate today, and so was Trayvon Campbell. So hopefully those are just minor nicks. Harris, it said injury/head. So I don't know what that means, but they could have a bit of a tougher time if they lose those people for the weekend.
Yeah.
And BC's coming into town. That's going to be a real interesting game to see.
Did BC list, I know we're a little bit off topic, but did BC list Rourke as practicing, or what did they list him at?
He's doing half the practice.
Yeah.
Mazzoli's doing half. Rourke's doing half.
The other one for BC that we could talk about it during the game, but we're here now, so I'll just say that Dejan Allen, who was injured in that game, the guy they brought in at the right tackle, did not participate. And that could be difficult for them. They've been struggling with that line and injuries.
Yeah. Yep.
I will say, though, before we go off this one, that's the other thing. It just made me realize I've been very impressed with Daniel Campbell for the Riders playing left tackle. He's the player that they drafted not this year, but last year. Fell down to the 6th round because he'd had injuries all through his college career. And I've read some stuff since then that it was basically, it sounds like it was mismanagement by the team in college. They never gave him the chance to heal. So the Riders brought him in and put him on the practice roster last year and just left him there and let him heal and do as much work as he could. And they are very high on him now. And I haven't, well, they've only given up 2 sacks. I haven't seen him give up either of those, and not a lot of pressures from him either. So it's nice to see a Canadian kid coming in and playing that well. But let's move on to Game 3. Ottawa 20 at Calgary 12.
The Hurricane Bowl.
The Monsoon Bowl, yes. I was saying the only thing that I think anyone can take away from that game is, the only learning you can get from it is, don't pass up on points in a monsoon, because you don't know when you're going to get more of them.
Calgary gave up 17 points away in the first half, more than they scored in the game. I don't fault either of the plays in the third and goals either time. They were the right calls. They just weren't executed well. I think Vernon had a really bad day. You can blame the weather, but both teams played in the weather, and I just thought he was short hauling things, and I don't know if his hands, maybe, I'm not sure what his hand size is, so maybe with his hand size, if it's not big enough and that affects it more with the wet ball, then maybe a Crum or another quarterback with a bigger hand that can grip the ball even better, even if it is wet. But I just thought he was short stuffing all day, but he did that one because Barnes was wide open on the first one from the third and goal from the 4. And then the second one was, I didn't think they should have run up the middle. I thought, again, they should have gone outside with P.J. Walker, because he had the great outside run earlier in the quarter. I just didn't think they executed well. And Renee missed another one. And as you just said, old man, you can't give away points in a monsoon. You got to take every point you can get, as evidenced in that game. And put it this way. The fourth quarter, I was watching without volume, because I'm mad when I can't listen to the game anymore. I just couldn't watch it. The offense was trash. The offense was just bad. Beyond the weather, the offense was bad. And
BA hasn't scored or thrown a touchdown yet.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Yeah, well, it was. I know the concern about it, but I got to say that in that game, I don't think that you can really blame him. I know, like you said, you got to play in the weather, but frankly, to me, I didn't see the final stats on it, but it looked to me like the Red Blacks were dropping more passes than the Stamps were. That were there, and they just couldn't hold on to them. So one of those games, that wet.
Yeah, you're right. Receivers were dropping balls, and maybe the Red Blacks dropped more balls once they got to the receiver. My problem was that BA wasn't even getting the ball a lot of time to the receiver. He was short hopping it. He was sailing it. He just wasn't getting it to the receiver.
So that storm was so bad that it knocked my sister's cable out. Like, it was nasty in Calgary. She ended up going, they were at, there's a sports bar in Calgary that does, shows women's sports. So they were there to watch the Calgary Wild game. And she said there was a lot of Stamps fans there in all their rain gear, and the Stamps game had started and they were still at the sports bar.
Yeah.
Probably trying to decide if they wanted to actually brave it and go outside. The junior outriders were there, and I think that's the only reason there was actually even that many fans in the stands, because not a day to be outside. So Good job. Did you see the Red Blacks? They did a whole cinematic video this week about them playing in the rain and having them walk in the pouring rain. There's and them persevering through this downpour. It was pretty good. Good job, Red Blacks.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yes, I heard. I don't know for sure, but I heard that they said the winds was gusting up to 80 kilometers an hour. So, and when you can see the rain coming down on the television, then you know it's heavy. Yeah. Win or lose, you take the points. You don't worry about too much that went on because it was just impacted so much. The only other comment that I had, which was I thought could potentially be very bad news for Calgary, was unfortunately, like with about a play or two left in the game, Damon Webb went down, and they'd brought him over. I thought he was the second best halfback in the CFL last year, and he's looked good this year. So if they lose him, that's got to hurt them.
Well, there
He's
is
a
a few
talent.
there was a few things there. Adam Maboye went down in the first quarter and never came back. So, that was a big part of it, because then they were using Benjamin primarily for kick returns, but he ended up being the backup running back instead and got a lot of carries. But that hurt without different styles. He's not a bruiser like Mills and Adam Maboye. So.
Sorry, let me jump in here there.
Sorry, yeah.
Antwi, save us a mea culpa for next week.
Yeah, exactly. Josh, same thing. But yes, it was Antwi. So yes, Antwi went down. Also, after that, after the goal line stands where he got stuffed, we didn't see PJ Walker again after that. Even for third downs, they went to the draft pick this year instead as the third down guy in the second half. So I don't know if that was a decision because of that play at the goal line, or if maybe Walker got a little nicked at that point too. So lots of things. It might be real good timing for this bye that they have.
It might. The other thing with it is it might just have been the angle that they were shooting at, but it seemed to me. And this is not favoring either team. I think it was just favoring, let's please have some offense. It seemed to me that any time that they were close to a first down for either team, the spots got really generous. I saw 4 that I thought, okay, well, that's going to be a second and a yard and a half. Oh, it's a first down.
Like, please, we need to. It's like when that strike zone gets bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move it along.
Good enough. I'm cold and wet.
I want to go home.
All righty. Anything else for that? Or I think we've already talked an awful lot about a game that can be summed up in monsoon in one word. So that takes us then to game 4, where Winnipeg went into BC and came out on top 27-14. Of course, it was Jeremiah Mazzoli in there, not Rourke. Yes, and unfortunately, he didn't play great.
I have things to say about this.
Okay, go ahead right now.
Yeah,
jump in.
I will not stand for Mazzoli slander. And this is why. Why did Buck Pierce give Rourke half of the game practice reps when he wasn't going to play? The balls were there. They were there. They were close. I joked that maybe the receivers in Ottawa were 5 inches taller than they were in BC, but they weren't. They were just off. They weren't in the ground. They weren't 20 yards. Like, people weren't running. It was close. They were always close. And I'm just wondering if he had full practice reps with his receivers, if that might have changed a few of those. Buck's doing the same thing this week, giving Rourke half the reps again and Mazzoli the other half. So clearly the lesson hasn't been learned. But before you dig Mazzoli into a big dark hole, I just have to stand him a bit for that. Yeah. And his O-line was terrible. The O-line was just leaking, and it was a tough day for the Lions.
Yeah. In fact, I would say, if I had to call it, I would say the overthrows had less to do with the amount of practice and more to do with that line. He was backing up on almost every throw, and that's how you overthrow, when you can't step into it and you're just having to try and strong arm it. I thought personally he didn't play well, but he wasn't really given a lot of opportunities to play well either.
Yeah, that's exactly how I thought too. Winnipeg just came out and just dominated again from the beginning in a different way than they did the week before, but they did. And yeah, Mazzoli didn't have a great game, but I wasn't 100% on him either. I just think BC is showing us the kind of team they actually are, and and they're a third or fourth place team. They're not upper tier in the West. They're certainly not Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. They're third, maybe fourth.
Where's Bryce?
Yeah, big question.
Why even have him on your team? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Mazzoli is listed as third, correct?
I've heard that, but I never actually checked.
I didn't really check either, to be fair. But he's been Mazzoli just signed. He's new. Bryce has been there for 3 years. At what point do you just not trust him to put him in? Why is he there?
I think Pierce is playing some gamesmanship there too. The stuff he learned from O'Shea. And that probably has to do with why Rourke's out there at practice. He doesn't want anybody to know who his quarterback's going to be. But if they do have to go for a while without it, I wonder if maybe he just didn't want Bryce's first full game to be against that Winnipeg defense.
Also, just to give Mazzoli, he had to throw 44 times.
Yeah.
Where's your run game?
Which is ridiculous. Yep.
44 times. We were given the Ticats crap for both throwing 50. This isn't far off.
Yeah, and the one defensive touchdown Winnipeg got was not Mazzoli's fault. That hit Butler right between the hands, and he dropped it on the ground, and that was the one that was the lateral, and they scooped it up and scored.
Everyone's like, oh, Mazzoli threw that lateral. I'm like, did you watch that? It hit him in the numbers.
It was a lateral. He threw it backwards because he had to. That's where the player was.
Yeah.
On the line. But it's the players either got to catch it or fall on it in a hurry. That I saw this with the Lions last year, and I'm starting to see it again this year, where they've got good players that can make great plays, but they just don't seem to have a lot of rah-rah to them. Like I noticed that with McInnes last year, and I'm seeing it again this year. He's got great hands. If he runs a good pattern and you throw the ball where it needs to be, he'll catch it every time. But if he's got to stretch out or get after something, or even on an interception, get back after the guys, it seems like he just doesn't put in that extra effort. I remember again, this is going back to last year, but I remember specifically one of the games where he was out there. They needed 8 yards for a first down. They passed to another receiver for 6 yards, and he's trying to fight to get across the first down line with a couple of DBs on him, and McInnes stands there and watches him. Whereas every other team in the league, they're over there pushing. They don't seem to have that real desire to get in and give it everything they've got, which is how you win football games.
Yeah, but that was the thing that Buck was supposed to change, right? Because that's what they even talked about at the end of last year themselves, and that's what they were supposed to change this year. I agree with you. They're not that great a team, period.
Yeah, my husband was raging watching that game. He's like, they're not even doing anything. It's just infuriating.
That's what I'm saying. It seems like low effort.
Yeah.
But I got to say, one thing that I loved about that game was the big man touchdown to Eli.
Big man touchdown!
Us lineman catching the ball.
Did we not talk about this in the rule changes? First episode, where they can throw to O linemen. We're somebody's going to throw to an O lineman. It was Winnipeg.
Yeah. Well,
nice.
No, it's not that they can throw to the O lineman now. That was a slightly different rule. What they changed in the rule was it used to be an O lineman couldn't touch the ball in the air at all. Whereas now they've said if it gets tipped, an O lineman can catch it. But no, that play was still one where he would have had to go in and declare himself eligible. He was the extra tight end on the line for the...
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I love it. What a great clip to just play all week on every Sports Center and TSN highlight reel. So much joy.
And as I've heard 8 people point out already, it wasn't your typical lineman touchdown where they sneak him off the line and when nobody's looking and he's got 10 yards around him, he just has to catch it. He had good coverage on that. They had to hit him. They had to lead him with the ball and he had to make a receiver style catch.
Well,
and he had to make a receiver style route too. He went down and cut to the outside and stayed right on 2 yards in the end zone along the line. It was well played.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is going through the DB's mind when they're I have to cover a lineman in the end zone? What is this?
I don't know. I think the only thing you could possibly be thinking is I've got to get in front and knock it down because I'm not going to hit him.
Well, you didn't, and he scored a touchdown.
Anything else for there, or are we done?
We just need to talk about I just want to talk about the ejections at the end of the game.
Oh, okay, sure, yes. I almost forgot about that.
I just wanted to... My mom has a saying that I think about a lot when I watch nonsense like this. And my mom says, if you have time for that kind of stuff after the whistle, you did not play hard enough between the whistles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mom knows.
Yeah, there's no reason for it, and yet I honestly don't understand how. I get the trash talking and all that, but how they're also calling misconducts if you say anything too far out of line for even talking. So how do you get under someone's skin?
I'm so curious what Willie Jefferson was beaking his mouth about.
Yeah,
because he had done something to play before.
Yeah.
So
that was his second misconduct.
Yeah. He had, so it was It wasn't like it was just a one-off. No, he was definitely doing something that was ticking him off for sure.
Yeah.
And interesting again, like I say, that that it's the veterans like him and Hardrick that I just thought were, that's really unusual, or not guys you think about in that manner by any means. So.
Yeah. Well, I know Winnipeg, I would never call them dirty or chippy, but they do have a reputation that they go that extra mile, as it were. That they play to the whistle and a beat beyond if they can get away with it, and those things I can see getting under your skin eventually. But still, you learn how to play football, and part of playing football is not taking penalties because somebody's decided they're going to get chippy with you. I don't understand how people get to a pro level and haven't got that into their wheelhouse yet. Maybe I expect too much of people.
I'm shocked that there was no misconduct, like ejections in the Saskatchewan Toronto game, and there was 2 in this game. I couldn't believe it.
When we were talking about that Saskatchewan Ottawa game, I was thinking about that, and I realized part of the problem there, I think, is that they're doing too much of the offsetting penalties. Yeah. So then 2 people get it. It doesn't really affect the game. It does mean that if they get another one, they're out of the game. So there's that deterrent, but it doesn't really stop anybody from instigating if they know it's just going to be the trade-off. So I think that they can watch the tape now. The replay center can see what's going on before it. Watch, and if you can determine an instigator, either the instigator gets the penalty or he gets a higher yardage penalty. It's like 10 yards for the person that's reacting to it and 15 for the one that generated. You start doing that stuff, and maybe then you'll get a cut down on it, because like you said, GT, a lot of vets do that knowing that they're looking to get free yardage.
Yeah. Is it like the NHL that has the instigator rule?
I think they do in fighting, do they not?
Yeah, I think because I think there's just if you instigate, you're getting the bigger penalty, and I think CFL might need to look at that, because that's not how you grow your game. Like, it's kind of funny at the moment to watch Willie Jefferson like gesturing at fans, but in the longevity of the game, that's.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, going back to the earlier games, Saskatchewan and Toronto, that many penalties, it just starts to be a bit of a slog to watch.
Yeah.
And I got to say that this weekend was a bit of a tough weekend to watch between the monsoon game and stuff. I found that by the time that I got into the third quarter of the last of the games of the BC Winnipeg game, I was saying, well, if I wasn't doing the podcast, I don't know that I'd stick around for this, because they were already at a good lead and it just wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, this weekend we get 4 games over 4 nights, so at least it's not double headers. But there's always a weekend in the season or 2 that you just go, yikes, that was hard to watch. And this happened to be one of them, because, it wasn't the best weekend for football, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope this week will be better, but I don't know, because it looks like there's at least some imbalance going on. It's Winnipeg and Edmonton, which doesn't promise to necessarily be a dead even game, and Montreal and Hamilton, where Hamilton is still struggling some. Yeah, I know. Careful.
GT's got his Casey Printers jersey on.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Bringing the good vibes.
Okay, yeah. To tell you the truth, that the 2 that I am looking forward to is to the BC Saskatchewan one, because that'll give us a read on where those teams are actually at. It's been kind of hard to tell. And then the other one is Ottawa, especially if Brown is back, in Toronto, or Toronto in Ottawa at the end of the week. And I hope that also that the Child will be back, and we'll see both starting quarterbacks there, because that could tell us a lot about that division. Yeah.
Should we do our picks?
I guess we better. So let's move on to our picks and what we did last week. We were 3-1 last week, which was pretty good.
Look at us.
Yes. So for this week, here we go. We're starting with, on the Thursday night, Edmonton at Winnipeg. Do I have to ask?
No. Just put it in.
We're all on Winnipeg there. Okay.
Yeah, we're all on Winnipeg.
Montreal at Hamilton.
I said Ticats, especially if Alexander doesn't play.
Exactly.
Also, I want to point out that the Humidex, I looked up the weather. I was like, I'm going to check weather this time around. And it's supposed to be 27 plus Humidex.
Yeah.
And as you know, GT, the Southern Ontario Humidex is like add 20 degrees to that. Yeah. So I'm going to say Ticats.
Yeah, it depends. Like, there's a couple of games this week that it depends on quarterbacks, and this is the one that's mostly depends on quarterbacks. If Davis Alexander's playing, I'm taking Montreal. If it's MBT, I'm taking Hamilton. So right now, I'm taking Hamilton.
Yeah. So we're going with Hamilton from you two folks. I will say that. Sorry not to be down on the Ticats, but regardless of who's in at quarterback, I would still go Montreal. The team or the podcast is picking Hamilton, so that's good. But I think Montreal. Yeah, we're picking Hamilton. We're picking. That's what I said.
I just want to also tell you that the Ticats put a really nice social media video out today about they're doing their hammer theme that night, and they put out a big thing about the history of the city and the history of the football team, and it's good vibes all around. Ticats.
All good stuff. I don't know that I'd be picking anybody over Montreal right now. So that's where I'm at. But that doesn't matter. The show is going Hamilton. So hopefully you guys take us to a win there. So let's go on to the next one. BC on the Saturday. BC at Saskatchewan.
Oh, it's Riders.
I was going to pick Lions, but then I saw Buck Pierce is splitting up his practice again, so I will say Riders.
Yeah,
no.
And
unless it's Jake Mayer.
Oh, if it's Jake Mayer
versus you mentioned
Mazzoli.
Harris has a hand injury.
They said head / illness. So
did he have a migraine?
Yeah, no, I'm still. You know what? I'm still going Riders. I don't have any faith in BC.
I know Mazzoli has a better game, but I'm still going to have Riders.
I'd say Riders too. The only way that I see that it might not be the Riders is if Rourke comes back and Harris is out. Because if it's Rourke against Mayer, that might be enough of a difference. But without Rourke, BC doesn't have a lot going for them.
Okay, but what's going on with their O-line? Even if Rourke's back, I don't know.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it looks like their big off-season trade acquisition that they gave up Ryder Varga for, who's a damn good linebacker. If he's out, then yeah. And they were already playing I think this week game they were back to 3 Americans on the O-line, but they were playing 4 Americans for the first 2 games, so they don't have a lot of backups to work with. Anyway, the final one, the first Sunday night game of the week, or game of the year, and I'm told this happens from now till week 12, apparently. They're going to be 4 nights a week. So Toronto at Ottawa.
This is the toughest to pick in a while because we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. If it's Chad Kelly versus Drew Brown, I'm taking Ottawa. If it's Dustin Crum versus Nick Arbuckle, I'm taking Toronto. So I guess it comes down. I don't know. It's too early to tell.
Now, so.
Okay, who are you guys going? Convince me.
I said Red Blacks because they survived the Monsoon Bowl with Dustin Crum and they're riding high. And the Argos have a coach who scolded them in public. And I think that it's just a bit messy there right now. So I think just for team continuity, I think I'm going to say Red Blacks.
Yeah. Yeah, I get worried if Crum is back in there, but we don't know that. So all things being equal right now, I'm going Red Blacks just because it's a home game. And they have really picked up their home play this last year.
Will there be a thunderstorm?
Yeah, it could be something like that. Now, again, like you said, if it becomes Crum against Arbuckle, I would still take the Red Blacks. So you can pick who you want, JT, for our records, but we're going Red Blacks.
You just saved me, so I don't have to pick anybody.
Yeah, but don't forget, I'm keeping our individual ones so I can say how we did too.
I know. So you know what? I'm going Ottawa.
Okay, we'll make it a sweep there. All righty, and hopefully we see some good games this week, because that's one of the things about the CFL is that even the games that look like they're going to be crap, sometimes they are, like we had this last weekend, but sometimes they are just incredible. And maybe it's not the whole game. It seems like there is something to the CFL that, like I'm remembering the Ottawa-Winnipeg game a few years back, the Crumback scoring 21 points in 4 minutes.
You just reminded me of the thing that I totally agreed with in Luke Wilson's rant. And that was, he said that there's lots of bad games in the NFL, but because there's enough teams to cover it, you don't notice them. Whereas in the CFL, with only 4 games, you notice everything every week.
Yeah.
And that's the same as within the games. And I absolutely agree with him. I've been saying that for years. That's one of the biggest problems with the perception of the CFL. The best part of it is there's only 9 teams. The worst part of it is there's only 9 teams. So every mistake is magnified. And it's really easy to pick out the mistakes and then harp on them. Versus, there's lots of crap football in the NFL. You just don't get to see it because there's 32 teams and you're not watching 16 games play by play. You're watching 3. The best 3 that are.
You're watching Red Zone.
Yeah.
I tried to watch that once. What a nightmare. But anyway, did they just give you a couple little clips from each game and then they're off to the next game?
Yeah.
Rich stuff.
That was the thing that I agreed with them in amongst all the part of the Rant.
I do agree with that. But as you said, it's being the worst part, but it's also the best part because it's a league where you actually get to see every game if you take the time to do it. And so if you're playing stuff like fantasy and that, you can make educated decisions based on it all. No, it is good. And then since we're back to this, we'll close on it too. I guess the part that I really got annoyed at of that whole thing was when he complained about our 3-minute rules and how, they don't add any urgency to the game. Are you kidding me? You watch the last 2 minutes of any NFL game and you may as well just go to sleep 90% of the time. Yeah. And whereas and he's complaining about, there's no urgency.
I think that was what Bo was mad at. Bo was like, are you not entertained? There was a tie and then a run back for a win in in very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Well, again, because I pay a little more attention to the Riders, I can't even remember what game it was last year, but there was a game like that last year in Saskatchewan where it went back and forth. I think the Riders ended up winning it by 2 points or something. And I interviewed Harris after the game. He said, if you're not entertained right now, I can't help you.
Yeah, and that's the way the league is, and that's the way, as you started out this section, that's the way the games are. Every game can be, it's not great. Oh, wait a minute, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to slow it down again. Oh, here we go again. That is the beauty and the detriment of the game at the same time, based on the rules. And then you're not going to change it unless you change all the rules. And we're not going to change all the rules.
Yep.
I would always rather have my heart broken by a last second TD, kickoff touchdown return and somebody winning $1 million than have my heart broken with a blowout.
That happens way too much down in the NFL. And the other thing with it is it's been a long time. I haven't watched NFL for much in the last couple of years, but even before that, it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of games that were exciting down to that last 3 minutes of the game. Usually by the time you're halfway through the fourth quarter, you know who's got the game.
They keep trying to tweak their rules a little bit to make them a little more CFL. So Luke Wilson might want to think about that.
Yeah, exactly. Look at what, who was it? McDonald down in, wasn't it? Yeah, the coach down in Miami that's doing at least last year was doing the best he could to run a CFL style offense, running his receivers along the line of scrimmage to get some momentum before the play. I personally, I agree with something that I've also heard both the Kelseys say, that they figure that there should be some of the CFL rules put in there.
Well, maybe Luke should talk to Jason and Travis.
I've given up on the whole NFL or CFL discussion. I don't care. I don't watch NFL. I've never watched NFL. So I have no opinion on the NFL so I don't care. It's pretty simple.
I've always said if you know the games to a point of really understanding what's going on the field, they're almost as different as rugby and football are. You can't compare the two games because they aren't the same at all. I think we've pretty much drained it. Yeah. I know I'm starting to fade.
All right.
So where can any closing thoughts you got, and where can the folks find you on the social medias?
Well, you can find me with this lovely jersey. $55 Beautiful. Is the current bid. We're going, as I said, I'm at GT Barnum on Blue Sky, and that's where it is. I'm also going to be posting it, if I can figure it out, on the Ticats forum on the CFL website. Anywhere else that anybody that is listening or watching, please repost. Let's drive some money towards CFL Fans Fight Cancer.
Yeah.
And I will try to outbid you.
I'll put it up on the CFL Reddit, too, because the subreddit there is pretty active. So,
great.
But I'll put your contacts on. Blue Sky GT. Okay, and MJ.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky at Sports and Plants. I am currently in a discussion about how the CFL could do a crossover with Book Talk to generate some interest.
Okay.
So come join the discussion.
Alrighty. And I'm oldman-SAC on Blue Sky, where the overall podcast is the CFL Outsiders on X. You can get us there if you want. We're also the old-fashioned email if you'd like. Oldman, all one word, .shoutingatclouds, all one word, @shaw.ca. And all that will be in the show notes. But I think that's about done. We've run ourselves into the ground. So until next week, for GT and MJ, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.